Today we'll have an interview with Ken, our former principal. So, Ken, tell us a bit about yourself.
Thanks, Don. What can I tell you? So, good question. Tell me a bit about myself.
Before you bit in the deep end there.
Yeah, you certainly did. Yes.
So, tell everything.
I'll tell everything. Yeah, right. So, born in Glasgow. I actually sourced my house that I was born in because in going to retire, you need to send your birth certificate in. I didn't have a birth certificate. Found out where I got that through Glasgow. That's what I said before. Was where I was born, but it had in it the address of my parents, and I had no idea where I lived for 2 years. And that address is in Annie's Land. You go into Google Maps. I went down the street that I was pushed because I was on Google Maps. Just a wee aside. So, yeah. So tell me about myself. I've already spoken about my education. I've got 3 kids. All of them have come here for some part. My wife's a primary school teacher. It's in Queensferry. So we've been in education for some time. I met my wife when I was a countryside ranger. I was a senior countryside ranger after my PhD in Livingston Development Corporation. I developed up a whole a program with all the primary schools in Livingston. We called it Adopted Woodland. We took all the kids out, the primary 7s, primary 6, primary 5, out into the local areas in Livingston, plenty of open spaces in my day. And that's where I met my wife, taking a group out. From there, we lived in Edinburgh and then moved out to Linlithgow, and I first started working here in 1994. The kids I've got, one's called Gregor. He came here to do life drawing, and then went on to do fine art at Dundee University. He's now working in property management in Edinburgh. He's in his, what is he now, 27? Middle son, Rory, he came here. There's a wee story here. Rory didn't really know what he wanted to do. He was kind of laid back sort of man. Chilled, laying horizontal.
Mm-hmm.
So and he was like, "What are you going to do?" He had a number of hires, just a real mishmash. I said to him, "Look, come along to the college, and it's an open day. Go and see what everybody's doing. Work your way around. I'll go and sit in my office. You come back when you're finished." And on the way in, we were saying, what he was trying to say. What do I like? And he said, "I quite like numbers." And I said, "I'll go and talk to the business people." So anyway, in we went. This is typical Rory, by the way. We went to the old building. I went right to my office. Was sitting there, just poured a coffee. Rory went left. The open night's for an hour and a half. 10 minutes later, he's back. "That's me, sorted." What do you mean you're sorted? He said, "I've signed up for H&D accounting. I start in August. Thanks so much. Let's go home, Dad." Okay. So he did his H&D in accounting, did well. And then got a job with Campbell Dallas. He now lives in Perth. He's going through his ACCA exams. He's got one more to do. By doing the HND in accounting, you pass a number of the exams, so you get accreditation for some units. You don't have to do them. So he he just has one more to do, and then he's a chartered accountant with Assets as it is now. So he lives in Perth. And then my daughter, she came here, did sport. It wasn't really for her. She was the only gymnast. Everybody else was footballers. And so she really loved the placement, which was with the primary school. She came back the following year and did childhood practice here. From there, did well, got a job as a primary support assistant, and is now doing teacher training. All of whom started here in some form or other. My wife came here and did the bakery course. That was a while ago, and I'm still waiting to see the advantages of that one yet. But apart from that, the 3 of them have gone on to great things. So they're all away from the house. My daughter's doing in first year as a primary school teacher, so she's got 3 more years to go. I've got a dog called Isla, who is a cross Old English Sheepdog Labrador. And full of beans. She's 2 years old, so I've got plenty to do once I retire, as of tomorrow. Now, hopefully that's a sort of capture of some things you don't already know.
Well, I mean, it's lovely that you're...
Go on again.
love it that your entire family pretty much at some point were here. Just a quick question, was your dog here also for some kind of educational purpose?
We've not brought the dog in here yet. I have brought the dog in for a wee wander around. She was just a puppy, didn't do herself a lot of... She was a bit naughty.
I'm sure we can get some kind of certificate.
Oh, I'm sure she could, yes. Leaving a message on the ground, absolutely.
Kind of certificate over here.
That's a good idea, Don. We'll have the whole gambit.
So you talked briefly about your educational journey. So how was your journey to getting your OBE?
All right. So the OBE. Well, if you get an honour, whether it's an MBE, OBE, CBE, or anything like that, or you don't know you've been put forward for it, and you're not supposed to know. So, in May 2019, I got a letter out of the blue saying, and I thought this is a wind up, and it was basically saying, and it was on a headed paper from Buckingham Palace, saying that I was going to be awarded an OBE, that it would be announced in the June Queen's list, and that I was to say absolutely nothing to anybody for a month. You could say something to your family, but it wasn't to go anywhere from thereafter. So nobody was supposed to know. I was a little concerned about telling Jane because she's not the best at secrets. But yeah, that was it, out of the blue. So it was for education and for our contribution to the economic development of the region. To this day, Dawn, I have no idea who put that forward. That's the other thing. Somebody puts it forward, and it's and you know, I get asked if there's people we want to put forward, and we do that, and I get asked. So I know it's not an easy thing to put people through. So I was delighted to have it. They ask you if you're going to accept it, which I did. Then they put you through you're in the newspapers in June. And then in November, we had the ceremony, which was quite amazing, quite surreal. We went down, the whole family went down to London, stayed overnight, taxi the next day, very regimented, into Buckingham Palace, through the crowds, walking up the front, through the main entrance there, joined the queue of people who were going, because it's not just me, there was lots of them. And then as you go up the stairs in Buckingham Palace, my family went off to the right as they went into the audience, and I went to the left and joined everybody else, and was taken into a room where everybody was milling around. If I was to give them a tip, I would say, some coffee please, because you're held for a while, it was just bits of water. But you're in those rooms with all the pictures, and you're in with complete strangers. One of the things I realised was, you're nervous. You're nervous. And I see this in graduations, I have to say. I get nervous. But I see students coming out on the stage, and that's a big day for them, and how nervous they were. As I say, I was nervous, but there was people around who were really nervous. And so you're just chatting to folk, and just everybody's relaxing. Mm-hmm. And then you're called, and you walk in a line, and you're called once to tell you what's going to happen, then you go and what you're not allowed to do, and anyway, I was in the queue, and I was called forward, and I had a little chat with Prince William. Oh. He's who is a lot taller than I thought he was, and he was very engaging. He knew about the college. When you see it, what you don't see on TV, it's not on TV, but on the picture, there's a guy, as I'm walking towards him, I was wearing a kilt. As you're walking towards him, somebody's having a little whisper in his ear, and he backs off. And as soon as you're there, he said, "Oh, Dr. Thompson, it's lovely to see you. So tell us a little about Forth Valley College, and what is it that the real strengths are? You do a lot of stuff in STEM and creative industries." And I said, "Absolutely." I'm thinking, that's pretty good, because I'm one of about 140 people going through him, and he's doing that to everyone. And then they put a little badge on you, little medal on you. You go round the corner, and they take the hook off you, and you give the box to put it in, and then you join the back of the audience. It's all over in about an hour and a half, and then we went into London. We walked to a restaurant, an Indian restaurant called Mary's Pickles, was it? I can't remember exactly what it was. best meal I've ever had. The day was fabulous.
I mean, I'm guessing, well, it was of course quite an honor to be there, but I'm guessing you're also very nervous and I'm guessing a bit overwhelming at some points.
I don't know about overwhelming, because we knew exactly what we were going to be doing. You're nervous because you don't know what's going to happen next. But I found that there are people around you who are as nervous, and so you're kind of sharing stories. So what are you here for? What are you here for? The people just started relaxing whilst they were chatting with each other. And so it wasn't overwhelming. What was really interesting was when we left, big crowds at Buckingham Palace, and then we left, and I'm walking away with my kids, and everybody's dolled up. We're very smart, and we walked across the courtyard outside, and you could see all the heads turning. Oh, who's this? Who's this important people? And I thought, we'll be in a photograph somewhere in Australia or China of really
Some
important
tourists.
people. Absolutely. And as you call it, what were you in for? Oh, we went in for the ceremony for OBEs and CBEs and honours. So yeah, not really overwhelming. It was a fantastic day. Yeah.
Well, that sounds like an absolute fantastic experience. But most of us here know you pretty much, we know you because you're our principal, and in some way you're at the end of your educational journey, let's call it.
Yeah.
How different would you say you are from the person you are now, from the time when you're pretty much any of us as a student at the university,
Yeah.
starting your education?
Yeah. That's a good question. What have I changed I'm 62 now, so what was it done 40 years ago when I was coming out of university, or going into university, more than that. I was quite shy. I and not really that confident. I played sport. I was a big cricketer. I played a lot of cricket, and I enjoyed that. But coming into leaving home and becoming independent at university or college, you start to find yourself. And I reckon within a year to 2 years, I became the person I am now, and that I'm very much, and the interest I have with the behaviour and animal behaviour, people behaviour, that kind of came to the fore as well. I enjoy watching, seeing how people interact, and that I became quite aware was something that really helps you in your work. When you realise how people are responding to you, then you respond back in that way that's positive. In a way that you get the best out of people. And I did that with, when I was in the Countryside Ranger, when I was taking school groups out, and also reading the audience as to when do you move on. I learned a lot as I was going along on me as a person. And what I would say to me as a person now, 40 years ago, is you will move on. Things will change and you will grow into this. 30 years on, be your own person. Be your own person. I have never moved from being who I was in my 20s to who I am now. And that's just what I do, and I don't think there's no veneer on me. This is me. This is what you get. Mm-hmm. And that's something I really learnt from where I was before to where I was now. And the other thing that I would tell myself back then is, and this was something that I've been doing now for 10 years, it's one of the most important philosophies in my world, is if I can't do anything about it, there's a word I use there, but if I can't do anything about it, then don't let it worry you, because you can't do anything about it. And there's too many people I see in my level, another level, who take on things that are something's happening externally, and then they're building up and building up, building up. And it can be really quite stressful doing that when you've no way of dealing with it. So I do that as a philosophy. If I can't deal with it, if I can't make an impact on it, if it's totally out of my control, don't worry about it. So that's something I would tell myself back there, because there's a few times I would have got myself into a bit of a state about something I had no control over. That for me is one of the best learning I've had.
Well, I'm sure many of the students here for Valley College would also think that it's a great idea to embrace as well.
Yep, it's a tip I've used now for 40 odd years.
You can't do it, out of your control. Then
if it's out of your control, stuff it, or words to that effect.
Well, you did mention that from when you started university until now, it's been over approximately 40 years.
Yeah.
What do you think? What are the biggest changes you have seen in education throughout those years?
Wow. Gosh, I've seen a lot of changes, and a huge amount of change in education since COVID. You know, the amount of digital work, the amount of hybrid learning, the expectation of where learning is going to go. I mean, when I first started, you were lucky to get a photocopier. It was called a bander in those days. You know, that's what was going out. In other words, you would type something out and you put it onto a sheet, and it kind of copied it, and then you turned the handle, and the bits of paper flew out, and it was copied on from the typewritten thing that you'd had. And then we had, that's where you realise. This is where I felt that my countryside rangering days were so helpful, because when I was a countryside ranger, as a ranger, and I'm talking to a group, I knew, this was the training I had through the Countryside Commission, you know that they are a non-captive audience, which means that if you're rubbish, they can walk away. Whereas in education, if you're not a good lecturer or teacher, you're still there, you're a captive audience, because you've got to be there, particularly in school, but you want to get something out of it. So I learned very quickly what you want to do is to try and ensure that you're engaging with the students, and as a consequence they are enjoying the learning. So I did quite a lot of practical stuff when there wasn't any of this activity. And then you move into overhead projectors, and then you start getting a bit of animation, then you're starting to get some really good. Now, blimey, if I was a lecturer now, I'd be really into all the stuff you're doing at the present moment in time. It's been hugely, it's been a real honour to have been the principal here and seen the changes. And we've got 3 new buildings, and we've been able to invest in the digital world, Wi-Fi throughout the whole building. Flipping heck, 15 years ago, what was that? I only got a computer 20 years ago, and that was a box thing, and we had one shared between 3 of us. So now, what a difference. And what's really important is that we have a strategy to ensure the digital world that we go forward into is one that we've planned into, and that we've got enough resources to be able to pay for it, and to manage the expectation of students and of our partners externally. So a lot of change.
A lot of big change.
Yeah.
It has been over 40 years, so you'll expect that.
Yeah.
At least there are some changes. But from when you started as a principal here at the college, what would you say would have been some of the changes to being a principal itself and to the college itself?
Well, one of the things that I look back on what other principals have done in time, and each time there's a different role that principals have. So as principal, I am also chief executive of the organisation. What people don't appreciate in local authority world, and sometimes staff and friends of mine, for example, don't appreciate as a chief executive of Forth Valley College, my budget is £40 million. I have 700 staff. I have 3,000 full-time students. We're working with over 1,000 school pupils. But because this is a charity as well, it's managed by a board of management, and that board of management have to ensure that this is a sustainable organisation year to year. We cannot and nobody's going to bail us out. That's the other thing. So what I've really learnt and felt over the last 10 years is the need to be financially sustainable, and what we've had to do that year on year. The sector has been in quite a difficult place for many, many years, and what we've done with our Make and Learning work is to ensure that we're sharing that with staff and make sure everybody knows what's going on, but that we're trying to find the best for everybody to ensure that their careers and that positive destination of 95% of our students finishing and going to a positive destination. And our industry partners know what we're offering, and so we're able to make the changes to allow that to happen. So as a principal, what I'm able to do is to make sure that with the right strategy, I have to stress this, you can't just go in there with not a plan. And someone said to me, so I heard somebody say, and this was about Brexit, actually, it was at a conference, kind of question was put to the minister. He said that a vision without a plan is just a dream. Yeah. And this is something that I was very aware of. We've had a plan since when I started, a 3-year plan each time, and we're very clear in the direction that we've been able to go. That's the other thing, that we I as a principal have been very keen to do, that we know where we're going, we know how we're getting there, we've got a budget to get through there, which decreases year on year, and that we're doing the absolute best for our students.
Well, that sounds like a monumental task.
You said it.
But you've been here for, well, as I know, pretty much a decade. What do you think, what is your highest achievement that you managed to do at Forth Valley College?
Gosh, excuse me. I knew that question was coming. What is the biggest? So I've been here since 1994 as a lecturer, and then right the way through. But principal over 10 years. What's my biggest legacy? One of the things, I have a few, but I will give you the big one. When I first became principal, I knew that this was a bloomin' good college, but we never told anybody. And this is the problem with the sector across Scotland, or even across the UK. We don't get enough of a voice externally as to how good we are. So I took us down to Birmingham, and we put ourselves forward for a Beacon Award for innovation. And we won the most innovative college in the UK. 440 colleges, and we were the top and most innovative college. Now, I knew we were, but we now had a statement of intent, so I was pleased about that, obviously. I've been pleased about our creative learning strategy, which has allowed the Connect Forth to come to fruition. This is one of the best projects, by the way, through my Connect Forth. So I could say the Connect Forth is one of my highlights, because it has been at the forefront of everything we've done in creative learning. We have a strategy for that. And we won some awards in London for this. The biggest thing I think has to be, though, ultimately the Falkirk campus, because I was told in 2014, you've got Alloa, you've got Stirling, we've just hit a complete financial meltdown across the whole of the world. There is no money. And I'm thinking, that's a good start for a principal. There is no money. But I knew that they had made, in regionalisation, they had made all colleges public bodies, and I knew that the Queensferry Bridge was going to finish, and I knew the hospital in Glasgow would finish, and thought, well, let's just keep going. So we knocked down the Middlefield building, we bought a bit of land at the side, everything that I wanted to do. We upgraded a building on the campus to allow people to move into that, and we just kept on going with the plans. And eventually I got a letter from Mr. Swinney, the Deputy FM and Finance Secretary, to say, on you go. And now in 2020 we've got our campus. So that's probably the legacy that I'll be remembered by.
Well, that's quite another big achievement. Do you think that possibly another campus will be built in the near future?
Well, there was always the plan for 3. So when we got a merger in 2005, it was always about Alloa campus. There was no campus in Stirling other than a learning centre we have in Kerse Road. So this is all new. We've gone from 150 students to 800 by building this. And then Falkirk. So the family of buildings for Forth Valley is complete. There is no money out there for new buildings, but we have completed our setup on time, on plan, and so there's not going to be another. They're not. In the future, we may get closer to other organisations and start building, specific centres of excellence. And there's conversations that we're having with a number of organisations, but there will not be another campus, not for foreseeable time.
Well, thank you so much. But before we give this interview to Joe, just a quick question. What was your first song choice and why?
So my first song choice and why, and I've given a lot of thought to this, and I wanted to make sure that my choices were timeless. In other words, what I'm hearing now, people will know, and if you don't know, you will recognise it when you hear it. And the one I picked as my first choice is one that I started hearing when I was in school in Grimsby in sixth form, and it was a really interesting one because it was, I like instrumental, and I'm not a great listener of song words, but I like the tune. I like the you know, how it all comes together. And one of the best ones I heard way back, and it is still current, it's timeless, came out in 1976. And it's one by a chap called John Miles, and it's called Music Was My First Love. So when you hear it, you'll recognise it.
Welcome back to Connect Forth. Hi Ken, I'm Jo. I'm a second year digital media student. So I wanted to start with accessibility because it's something that clearly I'm very passionate about and I've done a lot of work on. I run my own business, etc. to do with disability education, so I wanted to get your opinion. So in my experience, education, personally for me, has been inherently accessible as an institution. How have you seen education evolve and change as your time as principal, and what have you done to make the college more accessible for physically and mentally for your students?
Thanks very much. A good question, Jo.
Thank you.
I think we've come quite a long way in accessibility from when I started here. And I started in the college in 1994. And at that point, if you weren't on the ground floor, you weren't going anywhere in any of the facilities. And even then, in Clackmannanshire, the college there, when we merged, it was a 1950s secondary school, and it was on different levels. So you were only going to get into the reception area, and that was as far as you got. So actually, when we merged in 2005, we knew what we wanted, which was 3 new, accessible, physically buildings. And we had architects Riech and Hall. They've been with us since we started, since about 2008, all 3 buildings. And so you'll know that the buildings all have, they're only on 2 floors, so they're not the 4 or 5 levels. They have lift accessibility. They have wide classrooms, and what you'll also, wide corridors, what you'll also notice is that from Alloa to Stirling to Falkirk, and in your experience, Jo, I'm hoping that you're seeing a difference.
I do, yeah.
Yeah. And are you noticing a difference between each of those facilities?
I have. I prefer Stirling is my favourite campus. I find that there's a lot of space for me to navigate, and that's one thing I really value. Also, the floors are very smooth and not hard to drive on, because sometimes I can find that, depending on the texture, it can be really hard to drive. Also, I appreciate that everything is only on 2 levels and there's only 1 lift with 1 button to go in, so I don't have to memorize a bunch of access paths, because that can be a mission. So yes.
Absolutely. So you're feeling quite comfortable.
Yes.
Can I ask you a question? I'm going to bounce this back to you, Jo.
That's fine.
Because are you asked how you feel about moving around the building and how accessible the
Not a lot. And this has been a running theme throughout my life a lot. Basically, when I started in education, that was about 2007, 2008. I am physically disabled, but mentally everything's fine.
Yeah.
But basically, I had to go to schools out of catchment because of accessibility, and even the primary school I was going to get into, they said we can't take them. And my parents said, why? They're smart enough, they're bright enough, they can do it. And they said, no, we refuse, we are not equipped. And my dad was like, right, well, in that case, I want all the court papers, and I want every single reason why. And they were like, fine, right, we'll take her in. But that did not come easily. And throughout my journey in education, like what you were saying about the ground floor thing, that happened in my high school.
Yep.
Because they didn't want to get a fire access plan for me, so I wasn't actually allowed in classes for the first 3 years. I needed to be taught downstairs by the learning assistants because they didn't want to.
So your experience hasn't been a great one in education.
No.
And hence your own business, as you indicated, that you were involved in this. So what I will say is that Riech and Hall, the architects, do take into account the most up-to-date thinking around physical access. And I'm hoping that's what we've put in place. But what we need to do, Jo, is ensure that through listening to learners and through the student association, I have to say the student association, in the whole time I've been part of the college at the principal level, have been amazing. you know, and we have done a huge amount of activity. We've spoken with them around the design. We ended up in Falkirk and others with gender neutral toilets. We've moved those away following conversations with others because we listen to what people are saying, and that's what we want to do. You also mentioned, Joe, around the mental side.
Yes.
Yeah, do you want me to say a few words on that?
Yes, please do.
Because
I'm interested on your take on this.
Yeah, well, I hope I've said enough around the physical side of things. And then, you know, what I will say is that I have a very, very good new principal coming on, Kenny McInnes, who has been with the college, not as long as I have, but he certainly understands the college, and he has a really strong vision and values as to where we're going forward. And the thinking that you're having would be really, really beneficial to future students that need to access the building. On the health and well-being and the mental side of things, where this really came to fore has been through the pandemic. Yeah. We have a very strong student support department led by Anna Fote, and that has historically been there for students. We've always put the student experience at the forefront of what we're trying to do here, and if you look at some of the planning we've done, that's what we've been able to do. Once we get to the pandemic and the impact that had on people's mental health was becoming very, very obvious across the whole nation, secondary school, primary school, into the universities, into the colleges. And the government provided us with additional money to appoint counsellors to help. One thing I'll say is that I think the money would have been better spent being given to us rather than for counsellors, because we'd have spread the load, because all we could deal with was the numbers we were dealing with. That has been very, very helpful through that period of time. Unfortunately, that money is running out. What we're doing is using money from our foundation. We have a trusted foundation, and we are hopefully going to be getting some additional fund to maintain some of those counsellors into the future. So we'll balance the mental health support together with what we're doing in design and the facilities around us.
Wow, that was definitely a deeper answer than I initially expected, because I wasn't sure at what angle you were going to take, and I'm very impressed.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Honest.
Thank you, Joe.
But just since you mentioned COVID, and that's my follow-up question. Anyway, through research, it became apparent that you were actually due to retire at 60, and then COVID hit, so you did not. Why did you choose to stay? Because you would have had big decisions to make. So what was that decision like for you, and why did you make it?
Right. So this is a decision that I had with my family, and going way back. You know, when you're contributing to a pension, you think, right, I'm going to finish at 60. And that had been the plan, because everything would be ready to just roll over at 60. However, I've been here for at that point when 2020 came around, I had been here for like 26 years, and you know, this is part of my DNA. This is something that I'm really, really interested and involved with. And when it came to the pandemic, and I realised how much that was starting to impact and the decisions that had to be made, it was not the right time to go. I hadn't told anybody at this point, Joe, I have to say.
Right.
What I had was back to my wife and family, and well, my wife particularly, and say, I'm not going at 60. This is serious. I'd also had a few phone calls with Scottish Government. All principals were getting involved quite quickly around what was likely to happen and how long it would go for. So I didn't think it was the right time to let somebody else in to help sort out where we all were. So that's why I chose to stay on.
That's interesting. And I admire you for making that decision, because I assume it was not an easy one.
It was, to be honest with you, Joe, it was pretty easy. You know, when things aren't going right, why would you turn your back on it and walk away? And it wasn't as a consequence of anything we had done. It wasn't a consequence of what students had done. This is something that's happening to the whole country. And it wasn't going to be the right time for me to go at that particular time. And that's why I wanted to see this through. And we developed a whole Springback project and supported learners.
So, just as a slightly more personal question, both my parents were teachers. They have been teachers for over a decade now. And I found that some teachers are put on a pedestal, and that a lot of teachers are not necessarily treated as people sometimes. Especially my dad works in a private sector, so that comes with its own pressures.
Yeah.
So, now that we've learned a bit more about you as an educator and as a principal, are you willing to tell me a bit more about Ken the person?
Of course I do. Yes, absolutely. On you go.
So what would you like the listeners to know about you?
What do people not know about me? I think that's when I have conversations. So there's not many people know that in the mid-80s I was probably one of the country's experts in midges and horseflies.
Yes.
I was born in Glasgow. I moved to Newcastle when I was 2, hence the Geordie-ish in there.
I thought that.
A bit of Geordie. Actually, my marketing team wanted me to do a whole graduation team in Geordie. You know, it's 9:47 coming now. Next one on, please. I decided that wasn't appropriate, perhaps, but a good laugh. Moved to Grimsby when I was in school, and then I went to university at Nottingham, did zoology. I started off, now this is really, I think, what do people want to know? I started off being an animal behaviourist. I wanted to, and I was, animal behaviourists were known as the fuzzies. And I really wanted to understand animal behaviour, and as a consequence, the people side of me is in there, you know, understanding people. But in my second year at university, I listened to a lecturer who was so inspiring around parasitology and behaviour of how parasites impact on humans. I was hooked. I was inspired by one person that saw me through the rest of my life.
So it only took that one person?
Just took that one person to inspire me with some real thought-provoking stuff. I ended up doing all right with my degree. I then went to do a PhD at Edinburgh. And when you finish doing a PhD, I had little in the way of jobs for midgy people.
Yeah.
I became a countryside ranger.
How does that make you feel, that the fact that it only took one person to give you that inspiration? Like, do you ever question what your life had been like if you hadn't had that one influence? Oh,
well, it's a super question, which we could go on and on and on and on, because I have had thought of that. There's a really good book called The Dice, where a guy decides that he's just going to he's just going to throw a dice, or toss a coin. At every decision he makes from now on, I'm going to say, am I going to do that, or am I going to do that? Heads or tails? Tails. I'm going that way. And it just takes you away into a completely different route. So, you know, this idea of listening to one particular lecturer who was so inspirational to get you to move to that way, I don't know what I've been doing without it. I don't really think that through. I don't reflect back. If I hadn't done that, would I have done that?
Yeah.
You know, I just I go day to day, next stage, on we go. And as a consequence, Joe, I would say that I have very little in the way of any regrets to anything that I've done, because it's just been the right journey at the right time, and that's what I've done.
So before we wrap up this interview and Dwayne takes over for the final part, can I have your Desert Island Disc song choice? And tell me what your song choice is and why you chose it.
Right. Well, I knew you were going to ask me these things.
Yes.
And so I've given it a lot of thought. Because, you know, I've listened to a lot of music. I play a lot of music. I'm quite eclectic. I like lots of things. Yeah. I'll tell you a quick little story if we've got the time.
Of course.
You can cut it if you want to. But I quite enjoy darts. I'm not very good at it. We've got a dartboard at home. And I was playing my son, and he'd just come back from work, and he's a bit of a heavy metal guy. Yeah. And he says, let's put on the Alexa one tune, and then you follow it, Dad, and then I'll follow it, then you follow it, then I'll follow it. And I went, that's a good idea. So, what's the rules here, Gregor, his son? If you say the song, you've got to hear it to the end. He went, absolutely. Okay. So the first thing I got was heavy metal, and it just went, and it was dreadful. So, keeping to the rules, I said, right, my turn. 1812 Overture by Tchaikovsky. 35 minutes later, it was his turn. I haven't done that this time. what I've done is looked at things that really impacted me over the last, throughout my whole career. And the one I'm going to give you is, and I put dates to the three I've got, 1967. So I'm not going for something that's right up to date. I'm going to look back. I've looked for things that are timeless, that really mean something to me. And I'm going to give you 1967, Andy Williams, and he had this song called "Can't Take My Eyes Off You."
Oh yes, I've heard that song.
And
like
that's exactly, Joe, that's what I mean. It's timeless. And it's one of these songs that you hear, it just gets your foot tapping. And it was also one that we used at my wedding with my wife Jane. And that was 30 years ago in June.
Oh, that's nice.
So there you go.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. So there we are. Andy Williams, "Can't Take My Eyes Off You" is my first choice.
Cool. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
So, I've been Joe Pierce, this has been Connect Forth, this has been Ken, and I will now hand over to Dwayne. So, once again, welcome back to Connect Forth, and I'm the final part of our interview with Ken Thompson. So, I'm Dwayne, I'm a second year doing digital media, and it's lovely to meet you. I've got some additional questions.
You too, Dwayne, on you go.
So, what are your hopes for the future of the college? Have you given it much thought at all, or you just think about sitting back? Is that what it will?
Oh no, I have given it an awful lot of thought about the future of the college, because I'm handing it over. You know, I've put 30 years of my life into this, and 10 years, and I've had the privilege of being the principal of Forth Valley College and the 3 campuses. And so it was really, really important to me that the direction of travel was what we've put in place so far.
Yeah.
I mean, what we have in our Making Learning Work mission is, you know, to be the best for our students, to provide them with the best opportunities, to ensure that our stakeholders were able to talk to them and say, what do you need, and do that, and to make sure we can put as much as we're able to invest in our staff, from resourcing the equipment to support the development. And so by putting together a new plan, I've mentioned before about how important it is to have a plan, but we've got a plan to 2025. When that was complete and the board signed it off, I knew we were ready. I was ready. You know, the direction of travel is absolutely important. The other thing is to have the new leader in place, and I was absolutely delighted that Kenny McInnes is going to be the new principal. He has been my vice principal for a few years now. He was in charge of learning and student experience, and I know that it's in good hands. We've invested in our leadership team, and the direction of travel from all the management perspectives is a good place. So I am more than happy come tomorrow to say bye. It's over to you now, guys.
It's good to see you're confident.
Oh, I'm very confident in my team. And you know, when you hand it over to somebody else, you're then spending so much time in inducting, but you always know it's going to have to be that somebody else. It's their baby now. So you've got to hand over and you know, move on, and let somebody else take it in the way that they want to do it.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm very confident.
Thanks so much. So with a changing and shifting, this is quite different perception on pushing for further inclusivity. So gender, sexuality, you know, the general progression. How's that affected policy changes? Just like, because you see a lot of posters around now with inclusivity, it's very inclusive, it feels very welcoming, and I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, first and foremost, delighted you're saying that, Dwayne, that you're seeing it and it feels like that, because I can put policies in place and they can be way out there, but if it doesn't make a difference for our students and for our staff, then what was the point? What we do when we're doing all this is we follow the national program, the national requirements. So there's legislation that we need to put in place, so we have to do that. We've got a fantastic team in our student experience side of things who have really finger on the pulse. We've also got our strategy I was talking about making sure that all students are engaged in all this, and to make sure that we have a good, strong equalities, we've got a strong diversity, and we've got a strong inclusiveness within the policies that we develop and approve, and the board then go ahead to approve that. I will say one of the things that is not the easiest thing to do, it's easy to put in a policy on equality and diversity, increase your numbers, make sure that the buildings are able to be accessible, make sure that everybody is seen as equal to everybody else. To make sure that that is inclusive, that's the bit you write down, then it's got to do it. The inclusivity bit is the bit that happens as a consequence of that. Yeah. So I'm really pleased that you're seeing this. But you'll see it in how we're supporting the videos that we put out, the support material that we put out, the counselling material that we have. All of that is to provide the big picture, the best picture for all our students, so that they feel as part of the whole college family.
Yeah, no, it's lovely that you were very welcoming to that question. I was really interested in that, because obviously I'm a trans man myself, so seeing that change adapt and seeing how welcomed it is that those changes are taking place is really interesting, and also generally very pleasing to see as a whole.
I'm glad you're saying that.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, well, hey, I just lead the organisation and front it.
Yeah.
Behind it, there's a huge team.
Yeah.
And, as long as we have a plan in place and the team are enthusiasts, then one of the things I really like about Forth Valley College, and it touches on what you're saying, is the number of people that come in and we take them around, whether it's Stirling, Alloa or the new Falkirk campus, and they just say to us, wow, didn't know you did this. And what a lovely feel to the place. So in the design, in the way that people carry themselves, and the support we get from our staff, it is a nice place to work. And as a consequence, we hope it's a nice place for students to get their education.
Yeah, thanks so much. It definitely is.
Good.
Good
Good feedback, Dwayne. Thank you.
So do you have any fears for leaving this position? Having spent a multitude of years in education, it kind of is presumably quite tiring. Regarding COVID, etc. as well, all these situations that just kind of came with a lot of shock behind it. And does that mean anything for future plans as well?
So, am I nervous leaving? I haven't thought about it. That's the first. I've given it a lot of thought to go, but how it's going to be. My mother-in-law, 92, bless her, says, "You're going to get bored." And I said, no, I'm not going to get bored. I will get stuff to do. I mean, I'm a non-executive, so I'm on the board of SQA. I'm on the board of College Development Network, CDN. I do some work for the Institute Directors at the moment, so I've got stuff. Excuse me. I'm vice president of our cricket club. As I said before, I do play cricket, and I have a new dog, and I've got my family, and it's me. And there's times I want to spend with myself. So worries going forward? No, don't think so. Don't think so. I've done my time. I'm happy to hand it over. I've got new adventures going ahead. I'm really enthused about it. The whole COVID thing was a real experience, and I think that the staff, the students, my leadership team, the board really raised their game. And I was particularly pleased with the communications we were putting out to people. And this is the first year that students are having a complete year proper. Yeah. And you'll experience that as well. And I think it's really important, in years to come, that you as students recognise that your first year or your second year was part of that COVID experience, and what you did to get to where you are, because you're going to be successful, you're going to pass all this and move on to the next stage. Prospective employers will be really interested in how you coped. Never mind us, but how you coped with the support you had in place. But it's been quite an impact on people's mental health. We were very aware of that. We've introduced Springback. There was a saying that I heard when we came back into this, and I saw it and I've used it a few times, and people said, "Oh, it'd be great to get back to normal." And what it was is when in the rush to go back to normal, it's really important you choose what you want the normal to look like. And I think that's what we've chosen to do after that COVID experience. So yeah, it's been a hard gig. There is no doubt. Yeah. But no, it's been really satisfactory. And as I say, it's been an absolute joy, and I'm very proud to have been the principal of the college, seeing us through where we've been. Yeah,
that's definitely a lovely thing to hear. And good that you feel confident. You're not going to get bored. You've got plenty of things to do.
Absolutely.
You'd want to have a new dog. That's not bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, It's really good, and COVID, like you said, it was difficult for everyone involved, and seeing the support systems you've put in place to help people bounce back is definitely, once again, you see the effects of that. I think COVID has made a lot of people wary and more mature.
Yeah.
I think you were pushed into that kind of maturity.
Yeah.
Because it was quite terrifying.
Well, we had a 5-year digital plan, our strategy for moving to digital. 5-year plan. We did it in 6 months. The whole plan was pushed into that. You know, I had 6 people who were on teams who were real enthusiasts. Within 3 or 4 weeks, 600. So you know that was the pace of change we had to move at.
I think when you're in that situation, at least for a student, you don't realise how fast things move.
Yeah.
And now that we're kind of out the other side, seeing new things and kind of returning back to what our idea of normality is, that's when it kind of hits you.
Yeah.
You know, how tightly locked we all were inside, and, you know, trying to shift and make everything available online and taking these various course of action. You don't really realise what you had until it's kind of over your shoulders. So important you're saying that, Dwayne. You know, and I come back to it, it's really important that you reflect that what you have been able to do to get through is so important about you and your personality and your character, and what you can see as a skill that you have developed in that time. Yes, we've had really difficult times, and we've still got a bit of it. I mean, working on mental health has become more and more important, but also knowing self, knowing you as a person, has become more and more as you spend a lot of time by yourself. You've spent a lot of time with your family, but not many others. So it's been a huge learning, and I think but now we start to think about, from a personal perspective, from the college, what's the good stuff? Plenty of bad stuff. What was the good stuff I got from that? Yeah.
So we're getting there.
Yeah, it's lovely. Thank you. So you've already dabbled on what's next for you, so we can override that.
That's
one.
fine.
But, what sort of advice would you give to yourself in the past?
Well, I was asked that question before about, what's the best advice I've had myself. One of the ones, and I'll repeat it again, is, and it's a tip I would give to anybody, particularly in this job, but anybody, do not get wound. If you cannot do something about it, forget it. Too many people I've seen over the last 10 years have got more and more worked up about something they have no control over. Now, by all means have an interest, global warming, by all means but don't get too concerned about it, because it's out of your hands.
Yeah.
And I think about the funding that we've got. We do as much as we can, but then there comes a point where there's your funding. Okay, we will work on that. But I do know some of my colleagues in other colleges and other are working to try and increase it, or do more with it, or it's not fair, go down the it's not fair route. Well, meanwhile, we've cracked on. Mm-hmm. Because, if you let everything get to you, it would still, you would fall by the way a long time ago. The other one, which just springs to mind, and it was from my a colleague of mine when I was a countryside ranger, and I wasn't happy in my work. I went for a job interview in London, came back, and he said, Glaswegian chap, and I not do the Glaswegian accent, but he just said, "Sir, how did that go, Ken? What did you think about it?" And I went, I'm not sure. And he just said, "See if the wee man inside you's no happy, you'll no be happy." And I just went, yeah, gut reaction. How do you feel inside when you're making decisions? What do you feel? Mm-hmm. So they're my two. Wee man inside you no happy, you'll no be happy. For me personally, and if I can't do anything about it, stuff it.
Yeah, that's a good way to live.
There we go.
Try to be as stress-free as possible.
It is about being stress-free, and you can take that. If I can't do anything about it, stuff it. I take that into my family life. With my kids are getting wound out about something, I'm going, actually, can you do anything about it? No, leave it. Move on.
I think there's a lot of getting bogged down on things that you can't.
If you can't do anything, you've got other things that you can actually make a big impact in. Focusing on that. Yeah.
That's very good, actually. Thanks so much. I'll definitely be taking that on board.
You do that, Dwayne.
Yeah. And I was going to say, before we wrap up this programme, what is your final song choice?
All right.
And why are you picking it?
And why am I picking it? Right, so I had a lot of thought about what songs I was going to pick for this, 3, mm-hmm. and why. And I've come up with one, again, the timeless This is one that, and I was trying to find the date of it because I remember when it first came out, 1985. But through COVID, particularly in my family, when we were feeling a bit down, you know, or things, you know, you get things getting on top of you, we used to put this tune on, and it was Opus, and it was Live is Life. And it always went ting, 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 ting. Brilliant song, and it just lifted the spirits. And when you needed spirit lifted, that's what we always went to. So when I was concluding, what's the song I remember? 1985 first came out, but over the last couple of years, you hear it. And again, another one, you'll recognise it when you hear it.
I will, because I can't say I know the title too well, but I'm sure I recognise it.
I'm sure that it's down there. Opus, Live is Life.
Thank you so much, then.
You're very welcome.
It's lovely meeting you. Thank you, and that song choice should be good. It will be good, and if it makes you happy, that means it's good enough. Do you know what I mean?
That's great, Dwayne. I do know exactly what you mean, and you know that was a lovely idea. Pick my three tunes, and I wanted to pick the ones that were timeless for me,
Yeah.
and that's what I've done.
I think picking tunes and stuff like that makes everything a wee bit more personable.
Absolutely.
I love when people speak to me about music.
Yeah.
You know, so it means a lot. Like it's getting all the professional aspect, but just the wee tidbits.
Yeah.
Like what makes you happy? What tunes like
Yeah.
make you want to get up?
And I'll just throw this in, whether you use it or not. But it's not everybody that knows that your new principal, Kenny McInnes, is a heavy metal drummer, and still to this day continues to play in his band. And you know, he's talked about it. People have said to him, you know, oh, now you'll have to stop. And he said, no, that's your release. And some of the stuff that they do, it's not that heavy metal, but he does.
Yeah.
He's in a band.
That's cool then.
Absolutely, dead cool.
Very.
Yeah, you'll be delighted. I'm telling you this.
I'm happy. I mean, I'm wearing a band hoodie right now. I'm wearing my Deftones today, so
Oh, there you
it's
go.
quite cool here. So to see that you can still have your wee side.
Oh,
bit,
yes.
do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? And be
Yeah.
passionate about it. That's
Yeah.
what matters. Thanks so much for having a chat with us.
You're very welcome, and thanks so much, Dwayne, for your time.